Good afternoon. So I'm back on to talk about probably one of the things that I think it bothers me the most about the head injury, outside of the fact that I have a lot of random pains. Well, I guess I say random because it's at the impact site, and I always find it really weird when it hurts really bad. I always wonder if a clot is breaking loose, or I don't know, just whatever, anything that could happen. But one of the things that I find probably the most disturbing for me personally, with my traumatic brain injury, is the short-term memory loss. I think the reason it affects me so greatly is that my memory was one of the best things that I had. I could, I know I've talked about this a lot because I think to me, besides the ear ringing, at first what bothered me the most was the constant bilateral uh, tinnitus, as some people call it. It drove me mad. It drove me insane because it just once it still is never ending. But I've really learned to manage it emotionally for the most part. But the short term memory for me, I believe, is going to be, well, short term and long term. Because there are long-term memories, like I said, that are gone, that I will never get back, and I will never have anyone to recollect them for me. But the short-term memory is still probably one of the most disturbing things for me. I simply cannot believe that I have such a magnitude of short-term memory loss. It's unquantifiable, um, and it is disturbing to me. For example, um, Anthony was running me, taking me to run an errand today, which is very rare. I'm pretty reclusive, even more so now since the traumatic brain injury. I'm much more reclusive than I ever have been in my entire life, and really am very quite uncomfortable when I go out into the world. Don't like it. Want the confined security that I feel behind the closed doors, which is kind of contradictive in some ways because there's other stuff going on that I don't feel so comfortable with sometimes at my own, well, it's not my residence, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, um, one of the things just today, there's a song that comes on and Anthony goes, "Oh, here's one of your favorite songs." And I'm like listening and I'm like, who, like, who is this? And it takes, he doesn't answer because he knows that as soon as it gets far enough in, I should recognize it. And sure enough, it got far enough in that I recognized it. But it was odd for me to not even recognize the beginning beats. Um, uh, Again, my memory, I'm not going to say I had a photographic memory, but it was right there. It was right underneath, photographic. And in some instances, it was photographic. Um, so my memory capacity before the traumatic brain injury was amazing. The MRI images, I've inspected them pretty closely since I've received them, and I'm pretty disturbed because there are many instances when you're looking at the images, and I do recall I did a video about this, and I put it on Head Injury Jane, that you could clearly see differences from the left to the right side. And not minor, not little minor, like I'm not looking for everything to be exactly the same size or something like that. We're talking about significant differences. But the short-term memory for me, I believe, is probably going to be the biggest hurdle for me to get over. I rarely ever hear automobiles outside of this home. And that just sounded like some truck with, like, I forget what they used to call them. The dual mufflers, where they make the mufflers. I used to know that language too very well, automobile language. But the short term memory for me is going to be the biggest hurdle for sure. It's so bizarre. I am now using my phone for a significant amount of reminders. The post-it notes they're okay, but you know, they don't stick very well. So if I don't put tape on them or rubber band them around certain things, because if I do post-it notes, that means I have to like rubber band them around my phone and then carry them around attached to my phone. So I am using the phone more for reminder setups, but then it's kind of driving me crazy because now I'm getting like a bunch of reminders every day, and I'm just like, oh, snooze, snooze, snooze. But the reminders are important, and I do need them to remind me to do things. But it is, I think for me, the hardest thing, which is again unquantifiable, is going to be the loss of the short-term, the short-term memory losses. I just can't, I can't, I will never be able to express how there are so many of them in so many little ways every day that it's such a, it's a completely different mind. And it is frustrating. I mean, I try to be really cool with it, and I am for the most part, but I just, I kind of get tired of, saying, I don't remember that. I don't remember that. And it could be something that just happened 5 minutes ago, and I won't remember it. Now, that's not every memory. It's not every short-term memory. But it is a lot of short-term memories. So I just want to come on and talk about that, because the song, for me, music I've always been a music lover since I was a very, very, very small child. And once I realized this last year that my memory was so bad, the short-term memory loss was so great, I decided to use singing to work my memory. And, but I don't think I don't want to say I don't think it matters, but I still find myself struggling with the exact same memory losses for the most part, even in certain music and songs and lyrics and whatever. But it is strange that I would have to listen to a song for as long as I did today before I can recognize the song. For me, I'm just like, I try not to be disheartened about it. I try to be level about it and accept it. But it's very difficult for me. It's very difficult for me. One of the things I did, like, this is something that I just did a little while ago. I'm washing a blanket, and I took it out of the washing machine, put it in the dryer, cleared the lint thing, and put it all back together, and then closed the utility room door, walked out, and then I sat down and I thought, I don't hear the dryer. I walked back in there. I did not turn on the dryer. And that's me actively putting something in the dryer right in front of me. But this is what I told my doctor. I have to be careful even cooking. If I turn on, well, the tea kettle, it's not so much, but it's still, I have to always make sure that I have the little kettle whistle down, because if I don't, it could be up there boiling away and I can forget about it. I have left the stove on. I have made those types of memory lapses before, but it's all just, it still feels foreign to me to still continue to have memory lapses of such. I mean, to walk out of the utility room and not turn on the dryer is just too weird. I'm like, how is my mind? So some of it, I don't know if it's not memory loss, but if it's like lapses in it's like what it's called executive functions. And that has to do with your cognitive skills, cognitive impairment. In our cases, generally, people with traumatic brain injuries, we have cognitive impairment. And this is not so much a short-term memory loss as it is cognitive impairment that's coming through. I'm in the utility room. I take the blanket out of the washing machine, put it in the dryer, clear the lint trap, and walk away. And that's just got to be an executive function and a cognitive impairment problem that has nothing to do with short-term memory loss, because no memory was created. We're talking about a cognitive impairment block where a part of the brain just goes, okay, you're done, and walks away. When in fact, you're not, I'm not done. I have to turn on the dryer to dry the blanket. So I don't think that that's a short-term memory loss. I think that it's important now that I start differentiating between the two, because even though there is a tremendous amount of short-term memory losses, I know that I'm having cognitive impairment issues as well as lots of other issues. Like I said, the bilateral, I think I've actually lost additional hearing in my right ear. I'm having difficulty hearing out of the right ear a little bit more. And that's the one that does all the swishing and, now they both do the loud high frequency ringing and this what I call orchestras. Like sometimes it sounds like I'm ascending or it feels like, I say sounds like, it feels like I'm ascending or descending altitude. The ears just pop, and sometimes they'll pop for like 5 minutes. They'll just like take turns going back and forth, boop, boop, and then it'll go like week, and I'm like, they just have this whole thing going on. And it's really weird when it all kicks up together. Sometimes my sinuses in here, they pop. It's like pop, pop, pop. And it's in my sinuses in the head. And I can feel and hear them popping. So there's just a lot of weird stuff that still continues. And like I said, I think I've said before, I think that this new mind is going to be a permanent fixture of me. So, I'm still working on it, but, you start to kind of come to terms with it. I believe, I'm coming to terms with it. We'll see. Okay. Well, that's all. I just want to come on and talk about some of the weird, like it was weird to me because the song, I really like the song, but it's new to me. The song is new to me within the last year and a half. And I think that the newer the memory, the easier it is for me to forget it, the harder it is for me to remember it. So when I have old memories, right, because we have to be able to quantify, so I know that I started listening to this song. It was either last year or the year before that, because I do lose time a little bit. But I know that the song is new to me in that respect, that regard. Let's just say the last 5 years. Let's do a measurement of 5 years, and maybe that is a way to try and quantify the memory losses, because some of it is an immediate short term, and some of it is memories that I have created after the head injury. So the memories that are created after the head injury, those are definitely more difficult for me to pull, if I pull them at all. And new memories, that are older, 3 years prior, because my head injury will be 2 years in August, prior to that. So let's go 5 years back minus the most recent 2. So go out 3. Anything in that range is going to be really complicated for me to pull. I mean, there's a lot that I pull from that time frame, but it's not like how my mind used to operate at all. So it's really strange. So what I think I'm going to start doing is paying more attention to when the original memory was formed. Like, so if I forget and then I remember, or, there's a trigger that helps me remember, I'm going to try and start establishing when the original memory that I forgot actually was put on my brain, put in my mind, put to memory. And I use that lightly because everything that I put to memory is not going to stay to memory. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to cope with and also learn to measure. But it is frustrating for me because, for me, the number one, I think, thing is the short-term memory loss. It scares me to even drive. Like I said, I would, because when the lapses occur, they're so blank that I don't know, if I were in the middle of driving someplace, I could forget. So, I mean, I imagine it would have to be like, put a note in the car and drive, but there's so many responsibilities when you're behind the wheel of a vehicle. It really does quite terrify me to think that I would drive. I'm like, no, I think I'm okay. I mean, I don't know, but it makes me nervous. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I want to come on and talk about that briefly, and I hope that you guys are doing fantastic. Head Injury Jane, working with the cognitive impairment, the executive functions that are lost. And I do have an appointment to see a head neck, and lumbar specialists. They're neurosurgeons, but it's not about surgery. It's about trying to cope with a multitude of issues that I have in my spine and the head injury. So I'm going to discuss my images, my MRI and lumbar images, neck images with the neurosurgeons. I need to kind of ready myself for that, even though it's either late February or into March. I have three appointments coming up, and the most recent one is the 18th. So I have that memorized because it was part of the original reason I was hospitalized. Oh, so much. Okay, you guys take great care. Take great notes, and I'll talk to you soon. Head Injury Jane.